So before we start talking about tuples, I want to quickly go back to our GitHub repo and let's do a little bit of cleaning and organizing our repository. Now remember, this was our GitHub repo, right? We just created a GitHub repo, call it lecture 1. There's nothing there, just one readme file, which was automatically created based on the repo name and the description we put there. Now let's go back to our code in VS Code. Here, right, I cloned the repo. I have lecture 1, readme, and basically everything under that. Now let's do a little bit of cleaning. Let's say I want to rename this. I'm just going to click on the lecture. You can just right click and choose rename, or just press F2. And let's say lecture, let's do it like lecture 1 or lecture 1, and then underscore, let's say lists. So I renamed that. I'm going to close readme file, and I will create under the lecture, select the lecture, and let's create a new folder. I'm just trying to reorganize everything. Let's say this is or Python, let's call it 1, Python programming as a folder, right? And then I want to put this lecture 1 under this Python programming. Asking me is moving there, so we'll move it there. Now it's a little bit more organized. We have lecture 1, Python programming. You do have kind of a folder organization there. Now, and we can do other codes here when we talk about tuples and dictionaries, so we'll put everything under this folder. Now, again, going back to my repo, right? Here I don't really have much. It's just the name of the repo is lecture 1. So I'll go back, and you see this is not updated, obviously. So if I go back to this environment on VS Code, if you take a look at the option source control, and if you click on that, this will give you a general idea of what changed. And even if in the main environment you look at these icons, that the folder, the name of the folder, and the file, they're all green, meaning that they have changed since we cloned the repository. Now if you go to the source control, and I'm going to actually, we can keep it there. So you see the file there, it says lecture 1 lists. If I click on that list, click on that, you will see the a lot of stuff going on there. Some red space here, red line, and then a lot of green lines. This tells me that originally we only had an empty file, this red area. We removed that, we added all these highlighted green areas. So these are the changes, and we'll see again, and as you can see it says untracked. At the moment the changes are not tracked by Git, which is basically a version control. So since the original version we cloned from the repo, things have changed, but they're all untracked. How do we track the changes? So in VS Code environment, you see a bunch of options next to this file that says changes, right? It says this file changed. Now what do you want to do? You can discard the changes, which means you're gonna get a just empty file, so we don't want to do that. And then you can stage changes, right? So if I click on stage, what happens is that the process that Git follows is you first stage a change or changes that you've made in a file or files, right? Now the changes are staged, but they are not committed, as we call. And committing basically means creating a snapshot of whatever all the files and everything you have in a specific repository looks like in a specific time, right? So once I commit, I'm creating a snapshot that which basically says at this specific time, um, this is how the repository looked like, right? So I staged the changes. Now I can commit. In order to commit, I have to add a message, right? I say I updated, I covered or covered lists, something simple, and I click commit. Now when I click commit, right, if I go back to my Explorer window, see, these are not green anymore. It means the changes have been committed and a snapshot of all the changes is created. Now we have a history of this specific version of the repository. Now the thing is, if I go back to my repo and refresh that repo, there's nothing here. This is still empty. So what is going on there? The story is Git is doing all of these in a local level on my own computer. I still haven't updated this repo or haven't, as they call, I haven't pushed the changes to the GitHub repository. And that's what this sync changes is about. If you click on that, right, it tells you this action will pull and push commits from and to origin as slash main, meaning that or GitHub repo. So if I click OK, so there is nothing here. This is still the same, but if I go back to my GitHub repository, right, and I refresh the page here, now you can see I have a folder called Python Programming, and under that I have Lecture 1 lists. If I click on that, I have whatever I had in my code. And if I go back to the repository, I click on, as you can see here, this icon. It shows the history of the commits. This was the initial commit. There was almost nothing there, and this is the comment I put, covered lists. If I click on that, it tells me that, well, the left side is the original file that you had, lecture1_lists.python, and the right one is the changed. Well, the original was empty, the right one has stuff in it, right? So you can see the history of the changes. Now my GitHub repo and my local repository are synced.